4 years on from arguably the greatest international tournament to that point, the FIFA World Cup once again became the talking point of the sporting world, with the 2002 edition having the potential to be even bigger and better than France '98. For the first time in World Cup history, the tournament would be hosted by two nations, Japan and South Korea. Many wondered if there was a major interest in football in either country. However, the next 5 weeks went on to prove that the interest had become an obsession, and the action on the pitch underlined why. This is the story of the 2002 FIFA World Cup. South Korea and Japan were selected as hosts by FIFA on the 31st of March 1996. Initially, South Korea, Japan and Mexico presented three rival bids. The two Asian rivals went on a massive and expensive PR blitz around the world, prompting Sultan Ahmad Shah, the head of the Asian Football Confederation, to step in. UEFA and the AFC viewed co-hosting between the two Asian rivals as the best option. Japan and South Korea were finally faced with the choice of having no World Cup or a shared World Cup, and they reluctantly chose to go along with co-hosting. Defending champions France and co-host South Korea and Japan qualified automatically and did not have to play any qualification matches. 4 nations qualified for the finals for the first time: China, Ecuador, Senegal and Slovenia. Groups A to D played all their matches in South Korea, and Groups E to H played all their matches in Japan. The 8 seeded teams comprised Pot A in the draw. Pot B contained the remaining 11 European sides. Pot C contained 5 unseeded qualifiers from CONMEBOL and AFC, and Pot D contained the unseeded sides from the CONCACAF region and Africa. On the 1st of December 2001, the draw was held, and the group assignments and order of fixtures were determined. The opening game of the tournament would see the reigning champions France take on debutant Senegal in the newly built World Cup Stadium in Seoul. Group A began with arguably the most shocking result of the entire tournament, as defending champions France succumbed to a 1-0 loss to Senegal, with Papa Bouba Diop making himself a national hero. The French continued their miserable run of form as they were held to a 0-0 draw against Uruguay, with Thierry Henry being shown a red card. A 2-0 defeat to Denmark sealed their exit from the tournament. France went out of the World Cup without managing to score even a single goal, and earned the unwanted record of the worst World Cup performance by a defending champion, other than Uruguay in 1934, who had refused to defend the title. It would be Denmark who ended up topping the group after 2 wins and a draw, with new boy Senegal qualifying in second. Uruguay finished third, having picked up 2 points, as the French finished bottom. In Group B, Spain picked up maximum points to qualify as group winners, with 3-1 wins over both Slovenia and Paraguay, and a 3-2 victory against South Africa. Joining the Spanish in the knockout stages would be Paraguay, who, despite having the same number of points and the same goal difference as South Africa, advanced due to having scored more goals throughout the group stage. Despite a spirited performance, the South Africans were cruelly eliminated alongside debutant Slovenia, who failed to gain a single point, but did at least find the back of the net on 2 occasions. Group C saw a dominant Brazil ease into the second round after gaining maximum points from their 3 games. A 2-1 victory over Turkey, which saw the controversial sending off of Hakan Ünsal for kicking the ball at Rivaldo, followed up by a 4-0 hammering of China, and a 5-2 win over Costa Rica saw them through. It would be Turkey that would follow them through out of the group stage after a win and a draw put them through on goal difference, as third place Costa Rica had the same number of points but had conceded 3 goals more. The Chinese finished bottom of the group after 3 defeats and conceding 9 goals, with none scored. Group D saw tournament co-host South Korea top the group, as the form book was turned on its head. Victories over both Poland and Portugal, and a draw against the US, saw them through as group winners. They were joined in the knockout stages by the US, who overcame Portugal with an impressive 3-2 victory, as well as a draw against South Korea. Group favourites Portugal were eliminated as they finished third, with only a single victory from their 3 games, the same as Poland, who finished bottom of the group but with a vastly inferior goal difference. Germany asserted their dominance early on in Group E, with an 8-0 demolition of Saudi Arabia in their opening game. A dramatic 1-1 draw with Ireland followed, with Robbie Keane sealing a point for the Irish in the 92nd minute of the game. The Germans sealed their passage through to the last 16 with a 2-0 win over Cameroon. It would be the Irish who would join them in the second round, after taking 5 points from their 3 games, including a win over Saudi Arabia. Both Cameroon and Saudi Arabia would miss out, with Saudi Arabia having the poorest showing of any side in the tournament, with no points, no goals scored, and 12 conceded. Group F had been labelled the group of death heading into the tournament, as it featured Argentina, Sweden, England and Nigeria. It was to be the Swedes who would emerge as group winners, going unbeaten with 2 draws and a win. England finished runners-up in the group, whilst gaining a measure of revenge on Argentina, who had knocked them out of the 1998 tournament. A result that was all the sweeter for David Beckham, who had been controversially sent off in that game. Argentina were eliminated at the group stage for the first time since 1962, along with the Nigerians, who themselves could only manage a single point. Group G saw the 3rd place side from 4 years ago in Croatia eliminated at the first hurdle this time around. It would be Mexico who would top the group with 7 points, which included victories over Croatia and Ecuador. Italy, quarter-finalists in 1998, had to settle for second in the group, as their win over Ecuador and a draw against Mexico were enough to see them through. Croatia and Ecuador were eliminated after both sides claimed 3 points, not enough for either side to progress any further. The final group saw Japan repeat the trick of their co-hosts as they finished top of the group with 7 points. Wins against Russia and Tunisia, as well as a draw with Belgium, saw them qualify as group winners. The Belgians followed them through into the knockout stages as their 2 draws, along with a win over Russia, were enough to seal qualification. Unfortunately for both Russia and Tunisia, this is where their tournament would end, as they finished 3rd and 4th respectively. 32 teams had entered the group stages, now only half of those remain, as the draw for the knockout stages has been set. The first round had produced some major shocks, none more so than that of the reigning world and European champions falling at the first hurdle in spectacular style. As well as that, pre-tournament dark horses such as Portugal, Argentina and Croatia had all crashed out. After the dust had settled, the round of 16 would play host to some mouth-watering ties, as Germany would play Paraguay, Mexico would take on the United States, Spain would play Ireland, co-host South Korea would have a tough test against Italy, Denmark would play England, 1998 runners-up Brazil were matched against Belgium, Sweden would take on surprise package Senegal, and the other host nation Japan would play Turkey. It took the Germans until the 88th minute to break down a stubborn Paraguay side to kick off the round of 16. Oliver Neuville's strike was the difference between the two sides, as one of the pre-tournament favourites moved on into the quarter-final stage. It was a routine victory for England as they swept Denmark aside to progress. Rio Ferdinand opened the scoring from a David Beckham corner. Goals from Michael Owen and Emil Heskey sealed a 3-0 victory for the English, as the Danes fell short of the quarter-final stage they had reached in 1998. It took until extra time for Senegal to continue their unlikely run in the tournament, as they managed to get past Sweden. Henrik Larsson's opening goal was cancelled out by a fine Henri Camara strike. It would be Camara again who put the ball in the net in the 104th minute to put the Lions into the quarter-finals. This was the last tournament to include the golden goal rule, and this wouldn't be the first time throughout the competition it would prove decisive. Unbeaten Spain took the lead early on in their game against the Republic of Ireland, after Fernando Moriente's header put them in front after just 8 minutes. Ian Hart had the chance to level the game from the spot, but was denied by Iker Casillas. Once again, the Irish left it late, as Robbie Keane dispatched a 90th minute penalty to send the game to extra time. No winner after 120 minutes, so penalties would decide who would go through. In the end, it was Spain who managed to hold their nerve and progress, winning 3-2 in the shootout. Neighbours Mexico and the USA squared off in an all-CONCACAF affair, with both as eager to claim bragging rights as a place in the next round. It would be the Americans who would claim both, as goals from Brian McBride and then Landon Donovan booked the USA a place in the quarter-finals. It was a goal of the tournament contender from Rivaldo that set Brazil on their way in their game against Belgium, as he lashed in a magnificent volley from outside the area. The Brazilians sealed the result in the 87th minute, as Ronaldo finished off a slick counter-attack. Many had written Brazil off before the tournament began, but they were showing that they were still a force to be reckoned with. Despite the overwhelming support in the Miyagi Stadium, it wasn't enough to prevent Japan's World Cup journey being brought to an abrupt end by Turkey. A goal from Umit Davala was enough to end the co-host dreams of progression. The Japanese could take immense pride in their performance throughout the competition, as they proved that they could compete at the very highest level. The final game of the round was arguably the most dramatic of the entire tournament, as co-host South Korea took on Italy. In a game marred by controversial decisions and bizarre refereeing, Italy were able to take the lead through a Christian Vieri header, despite the co-host being awarded a soft penalty earlier in the game. The Italians did have the better chances to win the game, but it was a Sol Ki-hyun strike in the dying embers that took the game to extra time. Francesco Totti received a second yellow for an apparent dive, which was just one of a number of baffling decisions made by referee Byron Moreno on the night, which included ruling out a golden goal for the Italians for offside, a decision which was shown to be incorrect. In the end, it was a golden goal from Ang Hyung-hwan that put South Korea into the quarter-finals, but that moment of joy for the co-hosts would be overshadowed by the means in which they got there. South Korea's win ensured that, for the very first time in World Cup history, teams from 5 continents, Europe, North America, South America, Africa and Asia, reached the quarter-finals of the same tournament. Quarter-finals that would see England face an informed Brazil, Germany play the United States, Spain take on one of the co-hosts in South Korea, and Senegal play Turkey. Arguably the most anticipated game of the round kicked off the quarter-final stage as England took on Brazil in Shizuoka. It was England who took the lead early on as Michael Owen opened the scoring after a mistake by Lucio before beating Marcos in the Brazilian goal. The lead was cancelled out in stoppage time at the end of the first half as Rivaldo continued his fine form to bring Brazil level. In the 50th minute, Ronaldinho scored the most enduring goal from the tournament as his free kick looped over England goalkeeper David Seaman and into the back of the England net. Whether he meant it or not, it was enough to take the Brazilians into the semi-finals and leave English hearts broken yet again. Despite not being one of the glamour ties of the round, there was plenty of interest to see if the USA could keep up their improbable run going against one of the tournament favourites in Germany. Despite having the better chances early on, the USA went behind from a Michael Ballack header in the 39th minute. Controversy followed in the second half as Torsten Frings seemed to handle the ball on the line, but no decision was given. The Germans were able to hang on and progress through to the semi-finals for the first time since 1990. After the circumstances surrounding their last 16 win against Italy, all eyes were on Gwangju as South Korea took on Spain. Despite a few chances here and there, both sides were level after 90 minutes, so the game went to extra time, which is where the controversy reared its head. Spain were denied 2 perfectly good goals, one of which after the ball was deemed to have gone out of play before coming back in, before being put in the net. Replays showed that this was not the case. South Korea had been spared once again. It would be a penalty shootout to decide the winners, a shootout in which the co-hosts emerged victorious after scoring all 5 of their spot kicks. Amidst more accusations, scandal and hearsay, the South Koreans advanced into the semi-finals for the first time in their history. The last quarter-final game between Senegal and Turkey may have had the least amount of hype surrounding it, but there was no shortage of incident. Senegal thought they had taken the lead through the impressive Henri Camara before having his goal rightly ruled out for offside. Turkey then nearly went ahead, but Yildiray Baştürk had his effort cleared off the line by Omar Daf to keep the score at 0-0. The score was still level after 90 minutes, and so the game went to extra time, where it would be a golden goal from Ilhan Manziz that would take Turkey into the last 4. It had been a tournament of shocks up until this stage, and none more so than the 2 of the remaining 4 nations who had made it all the way to the semi-finals. There wouldn't have been many that would have predicted either Turkey or South Korea to have reached this stage. However, considering that the other 2 sides remaining were both Brazil and Germany, the consensus was that this is where the shocks would end. Only time would tell, as Germany would play co-host South Korea and Turkey would take on Brazil. Germany travelled to the South Korean capital with the pressure on to sweep aside their much more unfancied opponents and advance to yet another World Cup final. The South Koreans had home advantage and an abundance of luck, questionable or otherwise, on their side. Either way, the opportunity was there for both sides, it was just a case of who would grab it. It would be the hosts who had the first chance of the game as Lee Chun-soo stung the palms of German keeper Oliver Kahn. Having arguably the better of the play throughout the game, the South Korean resistance was finally broken as Michael Ballack put the Germans into the lead with just 15 minutes left to play. With that goal, South Korea's great odyssey had come to an end. Germany would be the first team into the 2002 World Cup final. Despite a myriad of controversy surrounding them throughout the tournament, the South Koreans had left an indelible mark on the competition. The second semi-final would be a rematch from the group stages, a match which saw 2 Turkish players sent off and Rivaldo vilified for his play acting. Despite this, both teams knew that the first game was in the past. This was a new game with a new potential outcome. A header from Alpay was pushed around the post, showing that Turkey were indeed up for the fight. Turkish keeper Rüştü was in inspired form, keeping both Ronaldo and Rivaldo at bay. Brazil grew into the game and their dominance finally paid off as Ronaldo opened the scoring for the Seleção. Hakan Şükür had the best chance to put Turkey level, but the equaliser just wouldn't come. Brazil would hold on to claim a spot in their 7th World Cup final. A thoroughly impressive Turkey side could be hugely proud of their achievement, knowing that they had pushed one of the powerhouses of world football to their very limits. So the two semi-finals went as expected, as both Germany and Brazil would face each other in the 17th World Cup final on June 30th, 2002 in the Yokohama International Stadium. Before the showpiece occasion was the matter of the third place playoff between the two beaten semi-finalists. Reaching this stage was just reward for both sides, who had proven their ability throughout the competition. The game started with a bang as Hakan Şükür made history by scoring the fastest goal in the history of the tournament. Lee Uk-yeong brought the South Koreans level with a magnificent free kick before İlhan Manziz restored the Turkish lead just 4 minutes later. İlhan got his second and Turkey's third as they took a 3-1 lead just before the half-hour mark, a lead which they held until the 92nd minute when Song Chung-guk grabbed a consolation for South Korea. Turkey grabbed third place in the tournament, with the co-hosts coming in fourth. "32 teams entered the tournament and now only 2 remained. 2 of the perennial powerhouses of world football were set to meet in a World Cup final for the very first time. Could the Brazilians claim their 5th title, or would the Germans match their 4 World Cup wins? Would Ronaldo be able to lay the demons of 4 years ago to rest? Those questions and many more were to be answered in the next 90 minutes of football. An uncharacteristic miss from Ronaldo early on showed that even he was feeling the pressure. The Brazilians made the brighter start, with both Ronaldo and Kleberson going close to opening the scoring. It would take until the second half for the Germans to make an impact on the game, as Oliver Neuville made an impact on the Brazilian post with a powerful free kick. After his first half heroics, it would be a mistake by Oliver Kahn that would lead to the opening goal, as Ronaldo pounced to tap home after the German keeper fumbled a Rivaldo effort right into his path. With just 11 minutes to play, Ronaldo grabbed his 2nd of the game and his 8th of the tournament to put the result beyond doubt. Despite a late chance from Oliver Bierhoff, Germany had no answer to a dominant Brazilian display. With that, the final whistle, and Brazil celebrated a World Cup victory for a record 5th time, with Ronaldo able to find redemption in the process. Brazil had proven their class and individual brilliance to be crowned champions and worthy winners of the 2002 FIFA World Cup. "64 games played, 161 goals scored, nearly 3 million fans packed into 20 stadiums, as well as hundreds of millions more around the world watched on as football's reach conquered new frontiers and in the process provided 5 weeks of passion, drama, agony, ecstasy, controversy and endless talking points. A tournament that would leave as much of an impression as the incredible surroundings that had hosted it."